What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the podcast, Beyond the Shadows, Overcoming Tragedy. It's been a while since we hit y'all with a podcast, but we are back with a much needed one. Uh, this podcast today is going to be on a subject that has been long overdue, and Keith Joseph um, is going to be talking about something that happened to him back in 2009, which was his ex-girlfriend named Sahel Kazemi, which we all know her by Jenny, was involved in the media story of what happened to Steve McNair on July the 4th, 2009. So he decided to sit down, and after all the years, and he decided to go ahead and have the conversation. And today was the day to do it. So appreciate you, bro, for wanting to talk about it, or getting the courage to finally talk about it or speak on it. I know you've been silent about it for a long time.
14 years, man. 14 years.
Yeah.
Been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while, and a lot of this stuff I haven't even asked you because I just wanted to give you your space on it, and I know it was difficult for you talking about it, so I never even talked too much with you about the situation.
Well, you know most, probably. You know, you and my family probably know more than anybody coming from my side. But a lot of this stuff that we're planning on talking about today, we haven't really talked about in open conversation. So
Yeah. And basically, on July the 4th, 2009, Keith's ex-girlfriend was in the media for murdering Steve McNair and committing suicide to herself. That's what the media said. But like I said, this is the story that we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to just start off with, can you tell us how you met? The media call her Sahel Kazemi. I'm going to call her how we called her, how we knew her, which
Jenny.
is Jenny.
Yeah.
So can you tell everybody how you met Jenny and how long were y'all together?
Well, we were together for about 4 years total. There was a couple of breakups in the middle, but in totality, we had about 4 years together, and they were pretty serious because we got kind of rushed into a serious relationship a lot quicker than what we kind of anticipated. But I moved down to Florida, as I spoke about in previous episodes on this podcast, when I was 17. And then not too long after, I met Jenny. And I actually had a girlfriend at the time. And I was at the mall, at Orange Park Mall, with a buddy of mine. And he knew her. And he invited her out to come hang out. And I had no intentions, basically, on really pursuing anything with her or anyone else. But she came along, and she was flirtatious, and so was I. And then as we hung out a little bit longer during the day, she ended up needing a ride back to where she lived, and I was the one with the car. And she insisted that we take my buddy home first. And she was very straightforward, asked me if I had a girlfriend, and I told her yeah. And she said, well, I'm your girlfriend now. Basically, in short. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but you know how she was. I mean, she
Yeah.
spoke her mind, and at the mall that day, she was very straightforward. She let me know straight up that like she was into me, and I thought she was attractive. So the rest is history. Basically, we got together that day and we started hanging out on a regular. But I met her down in Florida when I was, I think I was working at the mall that time. I was working at like Books a Million. I was a manager at Books a Million or something.
Okay. So how did y'all come back up to Tennessee?
Well, I was living with my sister, and my sister was married, and they were in the military. And that was initially my plan when I moved down to Florida. I was gonna, get all my academics together and get my diploma, and I was gonna go to the military. I was gonna follow suit, but that didn't end up lining up properly. I ended up getting kind of a bogus recruiter who told me I had to basically jump through hoops to get where I needed. But that fell through, so I kind of went the 9 to 5 route. Um, and I was kind of at the tail end of living with my sister and my brother-in-law, and she had just became pregnant with her first child, her daughter, my niece, and basically at this point, Jenny had ended up like moving in with us because the plan was I was going to kind of like go in with her on getting our first apartment there, and we were both working full time at the time. And my sister said, "You guys can, stay here till you get it together, but the goal is to get your own spot." That kind of folded because Florida's apartments were ridiculous at the time compared to the income that we had. So us being first time renters and no renter in like history or anything like that, it was tough. So we kind of started going looking for the roommate route. Didn't have many connects down there. As you know, all my friends were up here. So my cousin ended up hitting me up and was like, "Hey, I need a roommate. Would you be interested in coming back here?" So that's kind of where mine and Jenny's relationship kind of hit a fork in the road, the first fork in the road, because I was like, I have no other options. So I got to go. And I was fully anticipating us breaking it off and me coming back to Nashville, but she didn't want to break it off. So, she spoke to her family and was like, I'm in love with him. We're gonna figure this out together. I want to go with him. So that's what we did. I was surprised. I was fully surprised, but I was happy at the same time because I knew she was a hard worker, and I knew she was very helpful when it came to like getting things done and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
we came along.
she really was, man. She
Yeah,
really
she
was a
really
hard
was a
worker.
hard
And
worker.
like when I know her, like y'all had some of the first things way back then. Y'all had like I remember like when we used to hang out, y'all were like the first ones that had like a computer and everything and everything like way before everybody, flat screen TVs. Y'all had new cars. I mean, she worked and you worked.
Yeah, I was
So it
working
was
full
like,
time with you as a
yeah,
manager, and then she was working 2 full-time jobs because,
yeah.
well, I wouldn't say full-time. She was working 2 part-time jobs, but working maximum hours available. And she was a server. She was a waitress.
And
So she
y'all was
was,
living like, yeah. And y'all was basically living it up. I mean, living in the nicest gated community, like
yeah,
apartment home. Like it was crazy. So
yeah.
I know like she was all about her money. Like you were all about your money. And that, yeah, that was
We
very
had it
true.
going, man. We really did. When we put it all together, man. We had it going good. It was just we were so young, and there was a lot of that young passion that would, it would just get in the way of the bigger picture sometimes, man. And being so young and inexperienced and stuff like that, it would just silly fights, silly spats and stuff like that. It would get in the way of all the positivity that we had going on.
Tell us about some of the good times that y'all had, because I remember the time when you hit me up and you were like, "We're going to Hawaii," and I
Oh, bro.
never even known anybody to even say that out of their lips. We're going to Hawaii,
Me either.
and
Me either. I neither did I, bro. That trip, man. That was probably one of the and the crazy thing about that Hawaii trip, bro, is like, all right, like we were broken up. Like, and what's crazy is like, I don't know if you remember or not, but we started saving up. Like we got with this travel agent and started feeding the travel agent. Like they booked the trip for us, and then we started
yeah,
feeding them money to pay it off. And they gave us like a date, a deadline to pay it off before we went.
yeah,
And I remember the night we were sitting there at the computer, just me and her. She had the mouse hovering over confirm offer, right? And I put my hand on her hand. I said, "Hey," I said, "I swear to God, if we do this, we better not break up." Bro, I told her, I said, "We better not break up." I said, anything, any kind of spat, any kind of like disagreement we had, we better work through it because this is high, bro. It was expensive. We were taking a 10-day cruise in Hawaii to visit every island possible. And she was like, "Oh, yeah, man, we broke up. We broke up, bro.
wow.
I can't
So
believe that we
y'all
did.
y'all went on the trip when y'all was broke up.
We were broke up when we went. Yeah. We
Wow.
what it was basically, okay. And see, this is where a lot of people get their signals crossed when like I mean, to anyone who knows the whole story that was kind of spewed out into the media. They were, I mean, I don't want to really place any blame because they were basically getting information that was hit and miss from all kinds of different angles, but not the actual source themselves because I wasn't speaking. And the thing is we reached a point, and Jenny started getting into some friendships that was not really meshing with our relationship. A couple specifically yourself, but basically, she got into the clubbing kick, and it was cool at
Like we
first,
all have.
but it was cool at first, but when I got to the point where it's like I was working, and we were working late hours, especially closing shifts, and it's like you don't feel like going out unless you're like genuinely off. You don't feel like going out. Well, she got really, really into going out regularly, and it came to a point where I was like, "Look, like I told her I had a one-on-one conversation with her. I said, like we've had enough disagreements about this already, and I told her I was like, look, we're at a point where you got to make a decision." And she's looking at me like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, you got to choose our relationship, or do you want to keep going clubbing like this, like without me and stuff like that? I said, because you're basically living a single life with a boyfriend. You know what I mean? I was like, we live together. So you got to make a choice because I'm not cool with this. Like, because I know these guys are out here getting at you, and I can't be out there with you all the time. And you can't say that they're not because she was hot, bro. And it's like, I'm sorry, like you got to make a choice. She didn't believe me, and I told her that night to her face. I said, look, if you go out the door, we're done. We're through. And she laughed at me. She said, "I'll see you in the morning." And I was like, "All right."
Wait a minute.
She said, "I'll see you in
So
the morning." Because it was, how like you go to the club, you're out till like 3 when they close,
yeah,
and then you're going to Waffle House or IHOP or something. So
yeah.
4 or 5 o'clock going out at that age wasn't abnormal at all. But
So it's like, is that what you consider to be y'all last breakup?
no, no,
So like,
no.
when did the last breakup happen? Like,
The last breakup, well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because we had a few breaks. But I would say that was the last serious breakup. But I don't think she really took it serious until I started telling her, like, we need to figure out, you know, different routes as far as living arrangements and stuff. And then she started seeing I was talking to other girls. That was a problem because, like, I started talking to other girls when I noticed she was like, "Oh, okay, you're gonna take this route, all right." So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start talking back to these guys that are trying to get at me, and I'm like, "All right, cool." So being young, we're all like, "Let's play the jealousy game. Who can get the other one more jealous?" And we was playing it to the fullest extent. And I mean, it got to the point. I mean, this was MySpace, so it wasn't hard to
Yeah.
see what was going on. And I mean, I was talking to girls publicly. I mean, all while we were still living together, which is insane. But yeah, I mean, that's basically, like that was the most significant, I think, outside of there was a breakup prior to that, about 2 years prior, where we broke up and she moved back to Florida for about 6 months.
Yeah.
But that one right
So
there, I think that was pretty much the end of us.
so y'all was going out and y'all were dating, other
Yeah.
people. Um, when did you find out about her dating Steve McNair, and what was your reaction? Because like a lot of people don't know this. I know it because I know you. You
Yeah.
are a huge football fan. I'm not
Yeah.
really into football, but you
Right.
are a really huge football fan. And Steve McNair was one of your favorite quarterbacks.
Not
And
one of he was my favorite football player of all time.
exactly. So
That's
how
like
do a
how
like a
how Drake was your favorite rapper of all time,
yeah,
your greatest of all
yeah.
time. That was mine. Football, bro. I was a kid like rocking his jersey. I had every jersey, every color in his jersey. That
Okay,
was my
so
my
when
favorite football player.
when you found out that Jenny was dating Steve McNair, what was your reaction? Because if I found out my girlfriend was dating Drake, it'd be like, what? It can't be
Well,
real. This is I couldn't believe it. If that if
well, luckily, for my sake, at the time, it I I had kind of become numb to a lot of the stuff that was going on. Now, when I found out about that, I had I had already kind of started having feelings for a woman who eventually became my wife, which you know her. But
yeah.
prior to that, during the whole like stuff like that was going on between me and Jenny while I was still living in the apartment with her before she moved out, we were, like I said, we were playing that jealousy game. We were, like really trying to get a reaction out of each other. And a lot of young people do that. But like with her, bro, like I didn't realize like how many guys really tried to get at her. But with her being a waitress at such a hot spot at the time, like, bro, she came in contact with so many people. So when I say that,
Which
like
was Dave and Buster's, right?
Dave and Buster's, yeah. So like
Yeah.
and not only that, like she was working at Steak and Shake, Famous Dave's,
Oh
Dave
yeah, I
and
remember Steak and
Buster's,
Shake.
bro. Like she was all over the
Yeah.
place working at all these different places, picking up any hours that she could because, like we said, like she's all about getting her money. And my thing was like, when I say that I was numb to an extent, the reason being is because Steve McNair was not the only high profile name that she dated to get underneath my skin, bro. Like a lot of people don't understand this, but I remember one night she came in. I had a buddy, Julian, right? He was at
Yeah.
my house over the weekend, and she came home from work, and she said, "Hey, Do you know a guy named Young? Named I think his name is Vince. I said Vince Young. Why? Yeah. Why did he come in there? She said. She said, "Yeah, you know him. I think he plays for the Titans." I said, "Of course I know him. He's the starting quarterback for the Titans right now." I said, "Why? Did you get an autograph or something?" She's like, "No, I got his number." I was like, "Are
Oh
you
wow.
kidding?" I'm like, "You got his number?" She said, "Yeah, he gave me his number." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So it's like that. Like you're trying to what's your point? She said, "No, no point. I was just wondering if you knew." She said, "Yeah, I'm gonna go out with him soon. I think we're going out this weekend." Bro, now those moments, I'm like, "You're lying. You're lying.
Yeah.
There's no way." But she was not. And
Wow.
Vince Young at that time, Vince Young was actually engaged.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, so like a lot of people didn't know about that. And then on top of that, she didn't just date Vince Young, which I doubt Vince Young would ever see this, but that didn't go so well. Like they went on a date, she came back, and when I found out that that was like legitimate, and she really went on a date, I'm not gonna lie, I was really tripping. I was like, "Are you serious? Like you really gonna do that? Like, come on, man. Like I get it. I get it. We've been doing this back and forth, but come on, that's low. That's really low. Like you know what you're doing." She said, "Oh, you remember her like attitude? Like she's like,
Yeah.
oh, don't worry about it. Anyways, it's over with. Anyways, he's weird." That's what she said. She said he's really weird. He barely even talked. And she said she'll never go out with him
Oh
again. Yeah. So there was
dang.
that. But then one day we were actually kind of cool, and I kind of had the vibe that me and her was gonna possibly get back together at one point before we went our separate ways. And I was laying on the bed, and I think me and her were gonna go and either go to the mall or go get dinner or something. And we were on a cool tip, but her phone went off, and I rolled over. Her phone was flipped up. You know when a girl's got their phone flipped up, it's for a reason. Her phone was flipped up, laying on the floor where the screen was facing the floor. I turned it over, bro. She had a text message saying, "When am I going to see you again?" from Brandon Jones, who was a starting wide receiver for the Titans. I was
What?
like, "You got to be kidding me." So she was literally like dating Tennessee Titan after Tennessee Titan. And
So she was like one.
I seen
She
a
was turning
picture
into
where
like
she had a picture with like Lindell White. I'm like, "Oh my God, like how am I ever gonna go to a game again? Like how am I ever gonna
yeah.
be able to live a normal life again with her doing this?" I'm like, bro, so I had like
So
some
what
serious
made
thoughts.
her?
Go ahead.
My bad. I don't want to cut you off, but what made
Nah, you're
her
fine.
like out of all of the Titan players? What made her stick with Steve McNair? I
Okay,
mean, like
so what a lot of people don't understand about that situation too is I had all the intel on that because she was very wide open about that because she knew that was my favorite player. And going back to the Hawaii trip, right? When I tell you that our whole going back and forth trying to make each other jealous, she was really playing that hard. And when we went to Hawaii, it's like I said, we went broke up. Now, we would spend the day like nothing was wrong, taking excursions, having dinner, being flirtatious, and we hooked up like endlessly on this trip, right? But at night, the conversations got deep, the questions got asked, and they always ended up in arguments. I mean, I remember this one time we had an argument on that boat. We was on the cruise out in the middle of the ocean, bro. And I had my phone because my eventual wife called me Now I was talking to her while I was on this cruise. It was a crazy situation, but I was talking to her. She called me because she understood the situation. But they were both kind of like, they hated each other at the time. Well, Jenny caught wind that I was outside on the deck on the phone, bro. Like, she came out, smacked my phone out of my hand when I had it up to my face, my ear when I was talking. Took my phone, yeet, middle of the ocean. She said, "You ain't gonna be talking to
Whoa.
her on this boat, not with me." I'm like, if it's gonna be like that, like, why are you playing this game? You just need to be like honest. Stop playing the games. Be open and honest. But it never stopped. And what it is at the end of that trip on the plane, she tells me we're sitting next to each other, not talking, because that trip ended on a sour note. We're sitting on the plane. She's sitting next to me. She writes me a note on a blank piece of paper. She said, on this piece of paper, I used to have that paper, by the way. I don't know what happened to it, but she had this piece of paper and she wrote on it. She said, on this piece of paper, I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to answer them honestly. And then when you do that, I want you to write a question to me and I promise I'll answer it honestly. And by the end of this flight, we need to know what we're going to do. So that's what happened. Everything was going very well through like 8 or 9 questions, right? And I thought there was a couple questions we weren't going to make it past, but we did. But we got to this one question that ended it all. She said, "Are you in love with her?" Then you know who she's talking about. The woman I
Yeah.
eventually married. She said, "Are you in love with her?" And I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. I said, "I don't know." And for her, that was enough. She took the paper, she balled it up, she threw it on the floor. She said, "I'm done." Just
Hmm.
because I said, "I don't know," that was enough for her to be completely done. And when she did that, I felt it. I like felt it in my soul, bro. I was like, wow, we're done. Like, we're real done. Like, I never felt that way until she said it right there. But I felt it and I was like, wow, I think I made a mistake. I think I really made a mistake. And ever since that moment, I was just like, oh wow. Like, I didn't mean all this, but it was too late.
Okay. So,
But
uh-huh. Go
well,
ahead.
getting to your original question, sorry, I veered off a little bit, but to lead back up to that answer, the whole when she met Steve McNair, she was working after that trip. We were done, like through. And she was already on her way out, moving out. She had found a roommate and everything. She basically was working one night, and apparently he came in with his wife. And see, a lot of people don't know the extent of this story either, but he came in with his wife and his kids, bro. And he slipped her his number at dinner with his wife while she was waitressing for them. And she kind of like shunned it because of how, I guess, how old he was at the time. And she didn't know how big he was in Nashville. But it wasn't until she put that number on the dresser and I seen it. And I said, are you trying to get at me again? Like, what are you doing this for? I thought she had faked that because she knew he was my favorite player. That was real. And she said, "Nah, that was some guy who." She's like, "Why do you even care? We're not together." She's like, "That was some guy that just slipped me his number. He was with his wife and everything." I'm like, "That's Steve McNair." And then I started describing how he looked, and she said, "Yeah, that's him." I said, "That's the quarterback, the greatest quarterback for the Titans ever." And she was like, "Yeah, well, he's pretty wrong for what he did because he's with his wife when he gave me his number." Well, what it was is not too long after when she found out he was my favorite player, she's like, "Ah, okay. Here's a golden opportunity to get back at you." And that's how it originated. That's why she initially started talking to him, because she knew it would
Okay.
affect me bad.
So basically, you were pursuing your future wife at the time, and then she started pursuing Steve, right?
Yeah, like I had went full force in with, you know, she eventually became my wife, but I didn't know that was going to happen at all. I mean, that's a story for another day. But at that time, I mean, I knew I had started having feelings for her, but how far that was going to go, I had no idea. The problem with me is, like when we got back from that trip, I started feeling like, oh man, like I got so caught up in the game. I feel like I made a mistake. I knew I was still in love with Jenny. I just didn't
Okay.
want to live with, who Jenny was becoming at the time.
Yeah.
She wanted to live the single lifestyle, you saw it. She wanted to
Yeah.
live the single lifestyle, and I wanted to settle down. We were on two different pages at that time in our lives, and it was causing commotion. And it came to a head, and we reached a fork in the road, and I gave her an ultimatum. She didn't take the ultimatum. She threw it away and basically did her own thing and kept going. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, the whole pursuit of McNair, he came at her. She didn't go after him. He came at her. And when she gave in initially only for the reason of knowing that she knew it was going to upset me. Because, like I said, we were still living together at the time. But
Okay. So we can fast forward to
yeah,
as far as, so you knew about them going on these trips, and him taking her down to his mother's house and her meeting his mom and everything like that. You know about all that?
no, actually, I didn't know about that until much later. Like, because we both had mutual friends. I mean, there was quite a few of them actually. I mean, you were one of them, but you were more on my side. Julian was more on my side. Antonio, all of my friends were more kind of exclusive to me, although they were cool with her. It was more exclusive to our friendship. But like, your cousin was her close friend at the time. And then remember, we had mutual friends because of her boyfriend who ended up being the father of her children. You know what I mean? Like, so he would hear things and see things that I was trying to keep a blind eye to when we were broke
Yeah.
up. And he would come running back
I
because
remember
remember
that.
when we were doing music and
Yeah.
recording, he would come through the studio and he would talk and he'd be like, "Bro, like, how are you handling that?" And I'm like, "Handling what?" He's like, "Bro, like she's full-fledged in a relationship with your favorite quarterback, bro." Like, and I'm like, "Are you serious?" Like, so that's how I'm finding out all these details. And then he was still like friends with her on social media. So that's when all the pictures start coming out. So mutual friends were getting a hold of this stuff, and then that information was being spread to me. And I mean, even when she was doing that though, I mean, it was so clear that she was still playing the game, because I mean, a lot of people didn't understand. Like, while she was doing that, I was working. While I'm all stressed out with all this news, she would still pop up driving that Escalade at my job by herself and come sit down and talk to me and ask me like how I was doing and trying to conversate. But I was so beside myself about what she was doing, I wouldn't talk to her. And then she'd run off.
Oh, so y'all was still like kind of speaking with each other, like on kind of like good
No,
terms
I
almost.
wasn't speaking to her because I was so beside myself about how far she took it. But
Yeah,
she was still like trying to like test waters with me. Like I remember clear as day, I had a buddy. You remember Storm? We were
yeah,
working that day together, and she pulls up to get gas. She didn't even live over in that area anymore. She pulls up to
yeah.
get gas in that Escalade. I'm sitting outside smoking a cigarette. She walks up, dolled up, dressed up to the fullest extent, comes over and sits on the bench next to me. You remember that black bench right outside the door
Yeah.
with the little, yeah, that's where I was sitting. She pulls up with that Escalade, starts filling up, walks over, and she sits down right next to me. Bro, lays her head on my shoulder. Says,
Okay.
"How you been? I missed having you around." I'm like,
So
you're tripping. You gotta quit.
was that in '09?
Yeah, this was like, bro, there's so many things that got left out of all this detail. That's why I'm just like, I see these reports, back when all this was happening. I'm just like, man, they have no clue. They have no idea. Like, but anytime that I try to speak, it just got twisted. So the true story, the real story never got out.
Okay. So let's fast forward a little bit more. What like what happened that night when she got the DUI? Like she got the DUI and then she called you.
She called me crying. Yeah, she called me. She didn't
So
call
she got the
nobody else. She
DUI
called me.
on
Yes.
that happened on July 3rd when she got the DUI.
I don't remember what day. I thought it was before that, but yeah.
I
She
think it was the
called
night
me.
before, right?
Yeah, because she was
Yeah, I think it was the
terrified.
night before.
Basically, and it was clear as day to me. And I was trying to explain this to her. I'm like, you know, because at this point, like, once it was reached up to that level, she had genuinely started having feelings for him and really started trying to see that through. And especially just like you mentioned, where she, they went, he met her family, all kinds of stuff like that. Like, he might not have knew it at the time, but that's a very serious notion. Like, I met her family. They take that serious in their culture.
Yeah.
Like, when I met her family, they saw me after that point as her husband. Like,
Yeah.
they were actually aggravated with me because I never asked her to marry me. But the thing is once you meet the family like that, to them, that's a significant point in the relationship where it's like, okay, you're opening the door to now taking it to the next level. I don't think he understood that, but she took that vibe as well as her family took that vibe. And at the same time, he also lied and said that he was in the process of divorcing his wife, which later turned out to be a complete lie. So he basically lied to her and her family and basically had her hopes like way up here. She thought she's about to be his wife. And I was trying my best to tell
So
her, be careful. You know what I mean? Like he knows what he's doing. He's a lot older than you. You know?
and that's what confuses me. Like on the 4th of July, I mean on July 3rd when she got the DUI,
Yeah.
or I think it was July 3rd. And instead of like calling you, why come she didn't call Steve?
Steve was in
I
the
mean,
car with her.
what did she
Steve
call
was
you
in the
for?
car with her. He was in the car. She
Yeah, I
was
remember that.
driving him around drunk while he was more drunk than her. The cops pulled them over and let him go. They told him, walk down the street. You were never here.
Wow.
She
So
was given the DUI. He promised her, hey, like, you take this for me, I'll come back and I'll pay your bail. I'll get you out. Everything will be fine. We'll have this off your record.
oh, okay.
She called me because she was scared they was going to tow her Escalade and she had nobody else to call.
Oh,
And
okay, that's why. Okay.
yeah, so she called
So,
me because he was gone and he couldn't drive clearly because he was drunk. So he called somebody to come pick him up. The Escalade sitting on the side of the road. So she calls me. She's like, "Hey, I just got arrested. They're allowing me to call you." She's like crying. She said, "Can you please, come pick up my Escalade, take it back to my house? I really appreciate it. I just don't want them to tow it." And I didn't hesitate because not only did I love her, but we were really good friends. You know what I mean? And I
yeah.
would have done that whether we were together or not. I mean, I cared that much about her, like that. She was very close to me, regardless. And I told her I was disappointed, of course, but I'm like, yeah, I'll be down there. So Julian was hanging out with me that night. Me and Julian drove down there in my car, and I see no Escalade around. Cops sitting outside like they just got done in a situation. There wasn't nobody else around, but it looked like they had just finished up something somewhere. And I said, "Hey, can I ask you something?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "My ex-girlfriend called me and she told me she just got pulled over. She got DUI and she wanted to know if I could come pick up her car for her." He said, "Ah." He said, "Yeah, I was the cop that pulled her over." I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "So can I, is there a way that I can get her Escalade? That way she can avoid like having it, towed or anything like that." He's like, "They already came and impounded it." He's like, "But," he's like, "What did you say you were her boyfriend?" I said, "No, I'm her ex." He said, "Oh, okay. Well, I was about to say," I was like, "You're about to say what?" He said, "Well, I don't want to go into too much detail." He said, "But you a football fan?" I said, "You ain't got to tell me anymore." I said, "What are you gonna say? Steve McNair? Steve McNair was with her?" He's like, he just did like that. I was like, "Well, I guess he can figure it out then." And I rolled out. And then later on, she ended up getting bailed out, I think the next day. And I think he took care of the Escalade or whatever. But after that, that that's when things got real weird after that happened.
Okay, so after all that happened, who would have thought the next day everything would be out of control in the news? Not only we supposed to be celebrating the 4th of July, but the whole city of Nashville is now mourning Steve McNair. Like he's
It
not even
was
from here, but he's treated like the hometown hero in Nashville.
he was
And on the
Nashville's
4th of
golden
July,
boy. Yeah.
yeah, 4th of July, it was like it caught everybody off guard. Like, and the DUI situation happened what less than 24 hours before that, right? So tell us, because I don't think I ever asked this question. Like, how did you hear about what happened to Jenny and Steve McNair, and like, how did you react to it? Like,
Man.
how did you hear about it, and what was the reaction to the news?
Well, I mean, I didn't know about Jenny until way later on in the day. Nobody did. No, a lot of people didn't even know that there was anybody else involved. Like there was so many things being twisted around in the news and media outlets at that point because nobody really knew what happened or the details. It was the story was very vague coming from all directions. But basically, my night, and I don't think that DUI happened on July 3rd. I really don't because that didn't add up. On July 3rd, I was actually with a old buddy of mine, and he ended up having to crash at my house that night. So that DUI couldn't have happened on the 3rd. I think that was a different day. That was I think that was either the first or the second. But
Okay,
yeah, because that remember that night I had a girl that I was talking to over, and then somebody
yeah,
showed up at my door. Remember that? Well, So I had a buddy of mine who actually had to sleep over in my house because he got into it with his girl. Him and his girl lived together. They got into a big fight. I think they were like at a bar or at a restaurant. They got into it, and he called me up, and she basically had kicked him out of the car in a Target parking lot. He's like, "Hey, bro, can you come pick me up? Like, my girl just kicked me out of the car." And this was July 3rd. And I was like, "Yeah, I got about like a few more hours to go." He called me like midnight. And I was like, "Bro, I don't get off until like 3 o'clock in the morning." You remember we close at 3 on the weekends.
Yeah.
So he said, "Well, let me see if I can find a ride to your job. If not, I'll just walk." Now, you know, the Target is on Lebanon Pike. That's a long walk, but he took it. He walked all the way to my job, and I let him lay down in my car until I closed. He sat in the passenger side, just lay down in the car. And like I closed up, I got out, and he was like, "Hey, do you mind if I crash at your house or whatever? I don't even want to go home because I'm not trying to fight with her." So I said, "Yeah." Well, I was living in that loft apartment at the time. He he came home with me. He slept downstairs on the couch. I slept on the bed. I remember going to bed that night thinking to myself, "Man, my life is so wacky right now." Like wishing to myself, like at that point in time, man, like, just regretting certain decisions. I wish that I hadn't have done this, hadn't have done that. I just remember that night, it's clear as day, just laying in my bed, like, man, I wish my life was not like this. And I thought my life was so messed up at the point, but I had no clue how much more worse it was going to get the next day. And when I
So
woke
you were at
up,
home?
yeah, I was at home because we got off at 3 o'clock. I had Matt in the car, my buddy at the time, and
Yeah.
we went home. I had something to eat. I think I had some leftover pizza in the fridge. I had something. He ate some, and then I conked out. And I remember waking up the next day because I had closed. I woke up maybe 11:30, and he was gone. He was already gone. And I had a button lock on my door. He said, "Hey," he called me when I got up, and he said, "Hey, I left out early. I had a buddy come pick me up." He said, "But I left a couple things at your house." He said, "I'll be back later to get it." And he thanked me for letting him stay there or whatever. And I said, "All right," and I think I might have had to work that night. I don't know. I can't remember. But it was probably about like 12:30. He calls me again, and I don't answer. And he calls me again and again and again. And I'm like, dang. So I picked up the phone, and I'm like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "Bro, are you anywhere near a TV right now?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm at home. Why? What's up?" He's like, "Bro, turn on the TV right now." I'm like, "Why? What's going on?" He's like, "Bro, Steve McNair is dead." I'm like, "Steve McNair is dead?" At this point, I'm not even thinking Jenny. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, dang, like what happened? What did he do? And he's like, "Bro, like they're saying he was downtown last night and he got gunned down or robbed or something." That's what I was told initially. That he was downtown and he got caught in like an alley, robbed at gunpoint and shot and killed. That's what I was told initially. But it wasn't until later on, after I turned on the TV, I start finding out detail by detail, little by little. And then it's like the realization hits me like, oh my God, like, where's Jenny? Where's Jenny? So I immediately start texting, no response, texting, no response, texting. Then I start calling and I'm leaving voicemails. I'm like, "Hey, look, just call me back. Look, I'm not trying to pry. I don't want to ask questions. I just want to know that you're safe. I just want to know that you're okay. Because at this time, I had no idea whether or not if she was still talking to him or what. But man, no response, none whatsoever. And it wasn't until, like I had family come over, like my sister started calling me, have you heard from Jenny? My dad comes over, have you heard from Jenny? And I'm at this point, bro, I'm like beside myself. I'm crying. I'm worried, bro. Like I'm like, man, please, like I'm begging God, like please let her call. Please just let her send me one word, just one word. And nothing ever happened. So finally my dad tells me to come get in the car. He keeps telling me she's probably just shook up. She's probably beside herself right now too. She don't want to talk. You know what I mean? And he's like, "Come on, let's just ride over to where she lives. Do you know where she lives?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Come on, I'll take you over there." So he loads up in the car with me and my sisters. We all four go over there, bro. That's when family and like friends and everybody's out by her apartment, bro. Her apartment door was wide open. And see, now like I don't want to get on that whole tip, but that's a very significant piece of the story that a lot of people don't know about, or if it was mentioned, they neglected to really give it any type of storyline or significance. But when people were trying to figure out the truth and the details about what was going on, when everybody went over to where she lived to check on her, she was clearly not there, but her apartment had been busted into and things had been taken. And neighbors were telling us that they seen two black men go into the apartment, come out with trash bags, and pull off. And they even knew the make and model of the car. I don't remember what it was because it's so long ago, but I did then. And all this information was provided to the police as well. But like I know, I mean, I have my certain viewpoints and I have my stance on that. But that was a significant point in the story right there. I go over there, her apartment looked like it had been broken into. Stuff was
So
missing
you,
out of it. And there was no sign of her. That's when things got real. And
but you thought that at first you thought Steve McNair had been gunned down downtown, and then later
yeah,
on, everybody found out that the news were reporting that he was actually gunned down by his mistress, Sahel Kazemi, in a murder
yeah,
suicide.
yes,
That's it.
that's what they
That's what
said.
eventually, yeah, what they
Yeah,
reported.
that's what they said. Yeah, but there were a lot of very questionable details surrounding the whole situation. And we've had this
Well, I
conversation,
mean,
but that's not going to be the topic of discussion today.
I'm gonna be honest. It was for him to be such a high-profile star. The case was closed very quickly. That's all I'm gonna say on that.
Yeah,
But
I agree. I agree.
yeah, and um, can you share with everybody like as far as what was her state of mind leading up to the event, and like did you think she'll be capable of some type of act like that? You know what I mean?
Not at all. No, that's just like, man. You talk to people, and I've seen it. I mean, plenty of times. CSI, Law and Order, all kinds of, any type of like true crime stories and stuff like that. Anybody can sit there and vouch for a loved one and everything like that. But there are certain things and details that I know personally that I can sit here and confidently say there's no way that she is capable of doing something like that. Not for something. And see, this is the thing. Like a lot of people be like, oh well, there's a lot of money involved, and she thought that she had her superstar locked in. No, you don't know her. You didn't know her. You didn't know her personality. You didn't know what drove her. That was, and just like if you looked into things deeper, it was even stated multiple times. He would try to give handouts that she refused, which is one of the things that he liked about her. It was one of the main things that I liked about her. She liked holding it down on her own. She didn't want no help. She wanted to do it all on her own. She's very independent. But the thing is like, as far as a mindset goes with her, like, a lot of people don't understand, bro. Like, on the weeks, I'll say the weeks. I won't say the days, because it's like I said, it's 14 years ago. A lot of this stuff is kind of foggy for me. It takes a lot. Some people like actually bringing up specific things for it to ring a bell sometimes. But like, talking about it, the weeks leading up to it, some significant things that point out to me is she was, like, me and her started talking, and this, you were there along the way, and me and her did start talking again. We actually started dating again. There were nights that I spent the night over at her apartment with her, and these are in the weeks leading up to July 4th. And unfortunately, that's one of the main reasons why I was included in the entire situation, as far as like suspect, no suspect, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
when it comes to like when it comes to that situation, the weeks leading up to what happened on July 4th, her mindset was, what do I need to do? She was trying to line up things properly financially for her life to start a new chapter. She knew she was done with him. And the reason I say this is because, and the police knew this too, because I had all the messages between me and her in my phone that prove this right here. Me and her were talking. She came over to my apartment when I was still living in the loft. She had never been there. She came over and she starts like giving herself a tour of the place. And she was kind of like sarcastically like nodding her head like, okay, okay, looking around. And the reason she was there, she said she wanted to use my computer because her roommate was taking the computer. They were on their way out. So
Yeah.
she's like, okay, all right. She's like, yeah, I could see myself living here. And I looked at her and I was like, what are
Uh-huh.
you talking about? She's like, take it however you want to. You know how she was. I'm like, okay, I see what you're saying. All right, all right. So we kind of flirted a little bit more, whatever, like that. And she's using my computer. She's posting all her furniture on Craigslist because she's trying to move out. Now, while this was going on, she asked me if I wanted to go see a movie with her and then go get some dinner. We go see The Hangover. While we were in the movie theater, Steve McNair started blowing her phone up. He was blowing her phone up, like calling and texting and texting. She shows me a text where he's like cussing me out in the text, saying that he knew that she was there with me.
Yeah.
This was mind-boggling to me because, I at the time I thought they weren't speaking. I didn't know she was seemingly that significant to him. But apparently it was enough going on with them to where he was very upset that she was there with me. And he called her and she put him on speakerphone in the theater. And I look at her, I'm like, bro, what are you doing? She's like turning it down, like the volume down. She's like, I'm trying to watch a movie. She's telling him she's trying to watch a movie. And he's like cussing me out. I know you're there with him. I know you're there with your ex. If it's gonna be like that, blah blah blah. Like, and he's like cussing her out at that point. She hangs up on him. I looked at Jenny. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is too much for me. And I walked out. I walked out of the theater. Now, what a lot of people don't understand, this happened that day. I walk out of the theater. I'm going down the aisle to get to the lobby of the theater. She comes chasing after me. She grabs my hand and she said, please stop. And I said, Jenny, what do you expect? What in the world do you expect? You're literally getting like, this is my favorite football player of all time. I looked up to this dude as a child. You know, I rooted for this guy like super hard. Now all of a sudden he's cussing me out through my ex-girlfriend's phone, and here we are, and I still got feelings for you. She said, you still got feelings for me? I said, yeah, obviously, or I would not be here. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, let me tell you something. She said, everything's going to be all right. And I said, what is that supposed to mean? And that's when she told me straight up that she still loved me. And I'm like, are you sure about that? She said, yeah.
Mm.
And I'm like, all right. And she said, well, can you just come home with me? So I did. Bro, when I tell you, when I went to her house, I said, you got anything to drink? Dude, I said,
Wow.
I don't care what it is. Just give me something. And she did. She had like bourbon and stuff on the top of her fridge. And bro, that was one of the most drunken nights I ever had. Now this is weeks prior, mind you. And while I'm sitting there sipping away straight bourbon, she's like, you're getting too drunk. She's like, you might as well just stay here and sleep over. I said, where am I supposed to sleep? The couch? She looked at me. She said, wherever you want to. I was like, okay. So I slept in her bed. And the thing is, before that happened, she left. And before she left, she said, I'm going to end everything now. I said, what do you mean? She said, I'm going to give everything he gave me back, and I'm going to tell him to stop contacting me, that it's over. I was like, whoa. Like, are you serious? Are you sure? Like, bro, when I tell you, like, I felt all perked up, like, whoa, like, hold up, like, she's for real. I'm a little tipsy at the same time. I'm not really registering. Like, even if we get back together, this is going to be a huge hurdle to get over. Like, this is where I genuinely believed, all right, we might be really getting back together. Well, she goes, she comes back. She said it's done. And we spent the night together. I stayed there for the next like 2 days with her. And I had to go back to work. I spent my 2 off days at her place. And I had to go back to work. It's when I went back to work that I found out we were actually supposed to go eat. It's when I went back to work, I found out that she had went and met him at a bar or something like that. So when I found out about that, I sent her another text and I said, look, I'm not even going to get into this with you, but I told you from the get, I said, you got to make a decision. You're clearly still confused. I'm just going to go ahead and go about my business this way. You can continue on with whatever you got going on. And we stopped talking. She never replied. We stopped talking because she knew she was there. So that's where we stopped talking. But like the vibe though, that I had from her was she had the mindset, she had tunnel vision. Okay, things got all nutty over here. This got wild, but I need to get it all back on track, get my finances together, and I need to get my own spot. That was what her focus was. She didn't seem rattled. She didn't seem all crazy, like something was really bugging her. That's what I'm saying. Like,
So
but
she,
there's, go ahead.
overall, she had a good mindset last
Yeah.
time you spoke with her.
Yes. Now, there's a major key detail, right? Like when I was staying with her over those 2 off days at her place, She told me, like, in based on her opinion, she said he's not who you think he is. She wouldn't go into detail or anything like that. She was just telling me he's not a good person, right? Now, mind you, it was likely because, details came out later on that she had found out about multiple other women, which was not shocking to me or probably anyone else. But she found out that there were clearly multiple other women. Now, one key detail that a lot of people don't know about that I provided proof of because this was in text message form that was provided to the police. She told me she was going to go tell his wife. Now
Oh,
that's a key detail. Key detail. And whenever she told me that, I was like, Jenny, no, do not do that. She's like, why? His wife deserves to know the truth. He wasn't divorcing her. They weren't through. She's like, he was cheating on his wife with me and all kinds of other women. I'm like, Jenny, you don't understand. That woman, that woman ain't gonna be mad at him. She probably already knows. But if you come bring this to her face to face, she's gonna see red. But she's gonna see red with you. You are gonna be the fault. You are gonna be the problem. I said, it's
yeah.
dangerous. Just leave it alone. Let bygones be bygones. Walk away, clean slate. Let him do his thing. She's going to find out, but you ain't got to be the reason. I get you're upset. I get you're mad, but no. And I had to tell her, I'm like, look, this ain't coming from me because I'm still in love with you. I told her straight up. I said, this is coming from a friend's perspective because I genuinely care about you. I don't want you getting caught up in something like that because that's dangerous. That's a key detail that was left out of that whole story that the media outlets never knew about. And I tried to
Spe-
explain this stuff, but they cut it out of the interview.
Speaking of the media, how do you think the media portrayed her like during the aftermath of the murder? Was it? Do you
Like
think it
this
was?
insane woman who lost her marbles because she got caught up in the idea that she's going to have fame and fortune and tried to spin her off to being some kind of psycho lunatic that lost it and killed him and killed herself. But to anybody that knew her as closely as I did and what you did and what Julian did, bro, no,
When
no,
I got the news, I saw it on the news,
yeah,
and I saw her face pop up. I remember where I was at. I was at my auntie house
yeah,
downtown, and I can look across the street and see the Titan Stadium. I
mm-hmm,
was at her house scrolling on the computer. I didn't find out through the news station. I found out like on a blog or something like that. It popped up, and I
yeah,
seen her face, and I just about almost had a heart attack. It was
yeah.
like unbelievable.
I'll tell you what did it for me, man. Like, because they were pulling pictures. Like the media was Googling like crazy. And they were finding pictures of me. They were finding pictures of her. They were finding pictures of me and her together, her and McNair together, and all that stuff. And it was getting pasted all over the place, bro. And my social media was blowing up, not in a good way. Because, what's crazy is what people don't understand, bro. I wasn't approached by the police. They didn't come after me. I went to them. I
Yeah,
reached out to them almost immediately. And I'm like, look, hey, my phone is an open book to you. My emails, my social media, open book to you. Like anything that I know, because this is the thing. And I told them straight up, without trying to go into to any detail or get on that tip. I told them straight up, I said, I don't believe she did this. I'm sorry, I do not believe that she did this. I said, and I got so much proof right here that's just that goes against so much of the shaky stuff that's being released by the media. So what a lot of people don't understand is that I went to the police station multiple times. I sat down and had grueling interviews with two detectives twice. and they had me right there. I mean, and it was probably like 2-3 days after this happened. They knew I had nothing to do with this. They knew anybody that I knew had nothing to do with this. They had me on camera at work, well beyond the time frame that they said that this happened. They had my whereabouts. They had text messages, phone calls, all kinds of like witnesses that backed it all up to show where I was at what time and all the proof they needed to show that I had nothing to do with anything, right? But it took them over a month, bro, to finally have that. I think it was the chief of police come up there and say, Mr. Norfleet is no longer considered a suspect. You know how many times I had to call the police station and say, bro, I'm getting death threats. I'm literally getting death threats. The media will not leave my doorstep. I can't go to work. I can't go home. I can't do nothing. You saw it.
Yeah.
So it's like my social media, bro, it was blowing up. And this ain't like, oh, good publicity. No, not at all. Then they start digging in my music.
Well, look,
And of course, they're going to look for the worst possible lyrics available. And they're like, oh, he's talking about murder
and
in
you
his
know,
rap. Oh, yeah, him and every other
and it's
rapper that
crazy.
exists on earth.
Exactly. And what's crazy is they thought they caught you red-handed. Oh, we got him.
Oh, bro, yeah,
And
it was ridiculous, yeah. But see, what's crazy is like I can look back at it now, level-headed, and I can see it for what it was at the time. But at the time, bro, when that was going on, I was belligerent. I was beside myself. I was grieving, but also having to be strong enough to be, defensive over myself and the people that I knew. Because I even had a couple of friends they were trying to target. Remember, I don't know if you remember or not, but a buddy of mine, Matt, he posted on MySpace, like when we found out that McNair left her Escalade down there and had her take the rap for him and catch that
Mhm.
DUI. He posted his status on MySpace and said something about uh who cares about a retired Titans quarterback or something like that. F McNair in '09, right? He said this like 3 or 4 days prior when that DUI situation happened. Well, he did it on his phone. The only problem with that is the computer doesn't register when that status was updated properly. So it looked like he made that status after McNair was killed.
Yeah.
So, that with my friend who did that with MySpace or whatever, if you upload a status on MySpace through your mobile phone back then, it didn't register with your last login, only if you did it on the computer. So it looked like to, anybody from the outside looking in that he updated that status and said that about McNair after McNair died. It looked like he
Okay.
posted it on the 4th when he really posted it on like the
Oh,
first or the second when that DUI happened. Yeah. So they pulled him into the station. They were coming at everybody
wow.
because they didn't know. And here's the thing: if they really knew, if it was what they said it looked like, why are you all over the place? Why are you over here trying to talk to this one, talk to that one? You know what I mean? So that's it, it was clearly questionable to them too. Clearly. Because they were pursuing every possible other avenue as well, just like I was. And like when all that went down and everything, like it was just the media was attacking me in every possible way because they wanted a story. They wanted they wanted a spicy story, and they were trying to dig up any and everything, just like when they went for my music, you know what I mean? And then they started asking her friends who had nothing but bad details about our relationship because they were only friends during our breakup. So they're like, oh yeah, they was always arguing. He was always Nah, you didn't know
Well,
us back when we were good. You know what I mean?
let's talk about the where they thought they caught you at, which you was proven to already be at work or whatever. But the song that you wrote, "Closed Casket,"
Yeah.
like when they had everything on the news and they were like, "This is why he could have been the person that done this because of this song." It took me like I couldn't believe it because I was there when you wrote the song, and
Yeah.
it was way before Steve McNair was even mentioned. Like I didn't
Yeah.
even know anything about. We didn't.
Yeah.
I know
Good
exactly why
for
you wrote the song. I know who
yeah.
you wrote the song for. I know your
Yeah.
feelings, why you wrote the song, and they took this song and put it on the news like it was a
They
song.
wanted, bro, they wanted so badly for me to be guilty. That's what they
And
wanted
but
that
but
because they wanted the story.
but what's crazy is this is like you can tell how people don't listen to lyrics that much. They don't listen to what they want to listen to, and they like to turn
Yeah.
the narrative into whatever they want. Because, like, even if you go back and listen to that song, you said the name of the person who you were writing about.
Yeah.
How do you get a Steve McNair murder out of that song, and then you murder your ex girlfriend too, when you actually said the name of the person that the song was about
Yeah.
in the song?
Their name was clearly like it was like in the first bar or two.
Make it
It,
make
it was actually the
sense.
second. It was the first bar. His name was in the first bar, and he knows. I mean, we're good to this day. But the person I wrote it about, because anybody that knew when I made music that it was kind of like journaling. Like, I made songs to let out emotion, let out feelings, which is why majority of my songs were about what I was going through during breakups, or about my girl, or something like that, or about family. It was literally an outlet for me to blow off steam and let emotions out in a positive way, in a constructive way. To It was like a form of therapy for me back then, and that situation occurred. And I'm not going to go into detail about that. It's not my place, but a situation occurred where the person I made the song about did a person I really care about very wrong at the time. And I called them out in the song because it not only affected them, but it affected me directly when that happened. So me and that person has talked this out and are far beyond that now. But the thing is that was in the heat of the moment. And this was just like you said, I recorded this months prior, and it's like, how do y'all not go on here? You just completely negate, like purposely negate the actual upload date of the song. Cause I'm pretty sure they ripped it off of like what, SoundClick? I don't know if I was
Mm-hmm.
even using reverb at the time, but SoundClick clearly had uploaded date on there. So how are you going? Okay, why would you say that I wrote a song about murdering somebody when the song was uploaded months prior? Like, that makes no sense. Do you know how
And
like skilled somebody would have to be to play that out word for word? Come on, bro. Like
and a
they
lot
were
of people
reaching
don't. Yeah, they was reaching hard, and a lot of people don't know,
really
man.
hard.
Like, as far as when we were making music and stuff together, um, and I know everybody say, well, if you're a rapper, you gotta do no. These rappers out here, they're not doing the things that they're talking about in this music. Most
Most
of the
of them
time,
aren't. There's like a
yeah.
handful
So
that really are.
to me, when I was making music way back in the day, it was kind of like an alter ego. It was kind of like just being a different person behind the microphone and just saying whatever I want to say, not taking it literal like I'm about to go out and kill somebody or I'm about to go out. I was a outstanding. We're both outstanding citizens. We paid our
Yeah.
taxes. We never been to jail. when you listen to our music, you think we're gonna literally go out and murder somebody? Like it's
it,
it's
bro, it was the trend. It was the trend in music. And it was even more so if you hopped on a track with multiple friends, in the studio, and you're all doing your thing and playing off one another. That was kind of just the thing. You
yeah,
say outlandish things in your music. In rap,
yes.
that's just how it works.
And then you go
And
back and clock in at your 9 to 5.
at your 9 to 5 and say thank you, have a nice day. Yeah, right. And so I mean, and anybody who knows the culture of that music, they know how it goes. So that's why I'm just like, man, these people at these news stations trying to take this
Yeah,
literal. Like,
yeah,
come on, bro. Like, but I will say, to our credit though, majority of what we did write about was legitimate about our life, but in our past. And that song was actually truthful, just towards a different situation. And I never said that I murdered anyone in that song. I said that I think I went as far as to say that if it ever happened again, that I would,
yeah.
which I wouldn't. I would be angry about it and write another song or something. But the thing
Right.
is like they clearly tried to take
People
everything they
say
could.
anything when they're angry. You know, when you were younger, I hate my mom. You don't really hate your mom just because she
Right.
told you to go clean up. I hate her. You can't just a lot. We say
Yeah.
stuff when we're angry. You know,
Right.
we do stuff that
Yeah.
we're really not going to do. Um, like it's anything. But the news tripped me out when I saw that. I was like, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it
crazy.
really is. But I mean, it's like I said, man, they were trying their best, reaching real hard, trying to find anything they could to pin it on someone. But the reason being, and I blame the way the police handled the situation, they were doing this freely because they had nothing to go on. If the police had have finally came out and said, all right, this person, this person, this person, this person is no longer a suspect. Like, why did it take you so long? And it took me calling multiple times. I have to delete all my social media. I deleted MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. I had to take everything
Yeah,
down, all my music. I deleted all my music. Bro, do you know how hard that was to do? Because we were really on the ball, like getting some stuff going at that point. And nothing, man. I had to completely just blank it out. And I remember it got so bad that I had to actually leave home. And I got a week of bereavement. White Castle, at the time, I was a manager at White Castle, gave me a week of bereavement. And I had to, according to them, I had to grieve, get over it, basically act like none of this was as big as it was, and go back to normalcy in a week.
that was my
And
next
it's like,
question.
what's
That was
that?
going to be my next question. Like, how did it affect you? How did all this affect you emotionally and personally?
Man, like, so it affected me emotionally. Like, I mean, I went through the grieving process, but in a way that so many people couldn't even fathom. Because it's like everyone loses somebody in their life. You know what I mean? Like, I had
Yeah,
lost my grandfather who I was really close to not too long before all this happened. I've lost my mom to cancer. You know, I've went through grieving, but I have never grieved like that. That was hell on earth, man. That was the absolute worst feeling. You went to sleep like just praying that it was all a dream, and you woke up to the nightmarish reality that it wasn't. And it's like, bro, like it was a battle that felt like it was never ending from the moment that you wake up to the moment that you go to sleep. Everything became a chore. taking a shower became a chore. I remember sometimes I would get in the shower and I would have such little energy. So I would wash up and then just sit down in the shower until the water ran cold. I didn't even want to get out because I felt like, what's the point? My life is horrible. And it's like, I just lost a girl that I was the only girl that I was ever truly in love with at the point. Um, I felt guilty about the fact that this happened because I brought her up here in the first place with me. I felt horrible because of what this did with her family. I'm sure her family blamed me in so many different ways. Plus, at the same time, with the way that they were handling it and then pointing fingers at me, they probably looked at me and questioning. You know what I mean? And it's like, I had all these things running through my mind to the point where I became suicidal. Like, legitimately, the only point in my life where I was legitimately suicidal and had suicidal thoughts was back then. That was terrifying. I never thought I would ever face a moment like that, ever. But if I had possession of a gun during that time frame, I do believe I probably would have used it on myself. I didn't. I wanted to die with her. I felt so horrible about that whole situation. It was like, how do you even process? It's like, and then not only that, it's like, that would have been rough. I mean, picture it like this. Imagine Jenny never met McNair. It would have been rough on me if McNair had just died himself. There's a grieving process there. That was my childhood hero that I watched and rooted for my entire life. Bro, I cried when we lost the Super Bowl because he lost the Super Bowl. I wanted him to win the Super Bowl so bad. I felt like he deserved it more than anybody in the whole NFL. And I cried as a kid when he lost it. And that was a subconscious grieving process for him too. Cause it was like, man, dude, his children just lost their hero of a dad. You know what I mean? Like, there was so many thoughts coming from so many different angles, and it was just too much to process, bro. I didn't want to do it anymore. I felt like a computer overloaded with a ton of viruses, and it was just like, I just need to be shut down. I need to be shut down. Like, it was too much. And that feeling, it was just this constant feeling in my gut of just utter despair that never went away. And I mean, it took months, endless months that felt like years for that feeling to ever subside, because the harsh reality was that every day that I woke up was a day that went by that Jenny was dead. And I was just like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe Jenny is actually dead. She was the most significant part of my adult life at that point. I loved her, cared about her, not only as a friend and in relationship wise, but like, she was so significant in my life. And it was like I lost a limb. I was just like, oh my God. Even though we were broken up, it just, life did not feel okay ever. And I was just like, that's how it affected me emotionally. But then at the same time, I'm over here being affected like this emotionally, but having to process all these things in reality. Okay, you're an adult. You got a week of bereavement. You got to get back to work. 7 days. 7 days, bro. And you got to get back to normal. Bills are
And
still going to be due.
what's crazy is, man, you were you were all over the news, all over the country,
For a long
and
time.
you had 7 days to get your life back together and go back to
Yeah.
work.
Mm-hmm.
When you were getting death threats, when you were like,
Yeah.
you were a normal person, just a normal person, and then all of a sudden, overnight, just because your ex-girlfriend was linked to a high-profile superstar,
Mm-hmm.
all eyes were on you
Yeah.
for no reason.
Yeah, and see what a lot of people don't understand too is like, you know, I've heard some people say, well, you know, there's two sides to this too. I mean, like he lost people too. Well, there's a huge difference there. Those people, those people got a lot of money, whole lot of money. They can take that money and take the time that they need to get themselves to where they need to be mentally, emotionally, to where they can slowly but surely get back to normalcy. I mean, yes, we lost someone the same. I get that. But they also had that huge financial cushion that I did not have because I was the one, Jenny's family were the ones who didn't have all that money, who couldn't take all that time. And we had to get back to the real world. Meanwhile, the real world was all looking at us, had a microscope on us. So I remember when my bereavement ended, my first day back at work, I couldn't even squeeze my way into the door. They told me to go home. Every news station was sitting there waiting on me to come back. They knew when my day back was. They was sitting out there with vans and all kinds of stuff, blocking my way. Mr. Norfleet, can you tell me this? And I'm like, I gotta clock in. I got bills to pay. I was terrified because it's like, bro, like, how am I gonna pay my rent if I can't work? And they're not gonna pay me. So luckily, you know, when I came back and things were so crazy, I got with, you know, I spoke with my district manager at the time, and they told me what we're gonna do. We can't have all of that going on the premises. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take your 2 weeks vacation and we're gonna put them together and we're gonna give them to you now. That way you don't miss out on pay, but you're gonna have two additional weeks. I happily took that. It still wasn't enough, but I happily took that. And when I tried to go home, I remember I went to the grocery store, bro. I'm holding grocery bags, both hands, trying to get to my door. Hurry up, open it. They're outside of my house. News reporters rushing around the building trying to catch me before I go in the door. I'm like, can y'all please leave me alone? Like, seriously, like I'm trying to, I can't get back to real life, and they're not listening to me at all. I called my sister. I said, I can't live like this. Like, I'm gonna lose my mind. So she's like, I'm gonna send my husband to come and get you. You can come stay with us. They don't know where I live, and that's what I did. So I went out to Lebanon, and I stayed with them for the duration of the 2 weeks that I had. But what's crazy is like 1 week into the fact, my brother-in-law was having to go outside and literally like physically threaten them because they found where I was in Lebanon.
Wow.
Yeah, it got rough, bro. And it never subsided either. I mean, I'll tell you one thing that actually did. I deleted, I think out in Lebanon is when I finally deleted my music page. That was the hardest. Because you know how much work we put into all that music. And I deleted my music page. So they finally didn't have any type of social media. But I was still getting emails and stuff, bro. And I had to provide all this information. They say anytime you got threatening emails or death threats, send them to us and we'll investigate. And I was constantly, every day, having to forward death threats and stuff to the police. Because they weren't coming out and publicly stating that I had nothing to do with this, even though they knew it weeks in advance. But
Mm.
that's how all that was going. So I'm sitting here emotionally having to process all this, like in the most depressed state with suicidal thoughts, but also having to try and be strong enough to comprehend living a normal life again, all at the same time. Meanwhile, I'm all in the news. It was something from just, it was like a nightmarish Lifetime movie or something with
Yeah.
a bad script. It's just like,
Yeah, it was
golly.
crazy. It was
Like
crazy.
these things don't happen. And all I could just think about was why? why us? Why did this all happen to us? What in the world? How did life line up like this to end so badly in such a horrible way? Like, my God, man. And I mean, that's basically what lit such a fire up underneath me, because there were so many question marks that drove me to be like, I'm gonna dedicate all my focus and attention on defending her, not only for her but for her family too, because they're grieving her. You know what I mean? But they're also having to hear all this horrible stuff about her on the news and in the media. Like, I don't think anybody understands how difficult it is to grieve and miss someone they call a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to
Yeah.
process. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think the ones that truly cared about her, that was the closest to her, the only ones in the world at that time believed that she didn't do it. Now, time has passed and there's been multiple people to come forward and try to open it back up. I mean, I've been in contact myself with, detectives that were close to the case. I mean, I've talked to you about it, but they got nowhere with it because to them it is what it is. But in her defense, I still to this day, I believe that she did not do it. I always will. It's
If
too much
you
there.
is there anything like that you think the public should know or like understand about her that the media didn't address or coverage or like
Absolutely.
cover? I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. She was an absolute wonderful person. I would not have spent 4 years of my life with her if she wasn't. And it's heartbreaking. I still cry sometimes. It's when I'm by myself, and my line of work sometimes takes me over to where we used to live, or certain stomping grounds, back when I was with her and stuff, and it'll bring tears to my eyes with the flood of memories, because I won't be thinking about it and then something to trigger those memories that I tried so hard to suppress over the years, and trying to get over that situation and get back to normal life. But every once in a while, she'll cross my mind and it'll bring tears to my eyes, man. And it breaks my heart to think that she never made it past 20. That's so young. That's so young. And it's like, I think back to, all the good times that me and her had before all of that crazy situation happened during our breakup, and then her, going off and dating these guys through that period and stuff like that. Before all that, during the actual 4 year relationship that we had, minus the little nonsensical spats that we had that every couple has or whatever, she was such a good woman and a great friend and a caring person, an amazing sister, a great daughter, an amazing girlfriend. You know, like she was the type of woman that would give the shirt off her back. I mean, she used to such a hard worker. She used to take that hard earned money and go do good things for other people with it. I remember one night she had me. We went to the grocery store. We're leaving the house, and we see an old man with his dog and his wife, and they were homeless. She made me stop and pick them up, and my car stunk for a week because of how all them smelt. But I had them in the back seat, and we took them miles across town. And then she handed them like $50, and it was like the only $50 she had left. Those things, like, a lot of people don't know about, because all the media did back then was take anything they could find negative and just bury her with it,
Yeah.
because to them they were told she killed Nashville's golden boy, so she was just this horrible person from the beginning, and they wanted to paint her out to be as horrible as they possibly could be. And that's just not the truth. Like I said, she was an amazing woman. an amazing friend, a great girlfriend before the end of our relationship. She was a great daughter, a great sister, a great aunt, and she really, really cared about her family, and her family really, really cared about her. And a lot of people don't understand either is that she lost her actual mom. She called her sister mom for majority of her life. But when she was 9 years old, when she lived in Iran before she had to actually leave that country and flee due to them, all the conflict that was going on over there, her mother was murdered when she went outside to play. Their house was broken into, her mother was murdered. And she held her mom in her arms while her mother bled to death. Now that a
Wow.
lot of people don't understand that. She's a very, very strong woman, and she made it through a lot at an early age, which is why I know how level-headed she actually was and how independent and strong-willed she was. She made it through all of that stuff. So for people to sit here and say, oh, okay, well, she was, she lost her cool because of the fact that she thought that she had riches on her way and had a famous person, and then it was all stripped away from her, and then she lost her mind and killed them and herself. I'm like, no, that's not her. That's not her. First off, they weren't together long enough for that to even build up to be that passionate. Second off, I'm pretty sure there was a little bit more women that were involved a lot longer than they were, that would have been a little bit more scorned than she was, if you get my drift. So the thing is, the way that she was painted in the media because of how everything was stated about what went down was unfair, not only to her and her life's legacy, which is as short as it was, she had one. And it's worth noting how positive it actually was before it ended at such a young age. But it's unfair to her family as well. Her family deserved better than that. And unfortunately, they didn't get that. And I tried my best back in the day to try and be that light, to shine some light on who she actually was whenever I was given the opportunity. And I did an interview with CBS Investigates, and they promised that they would not go down a negative road with me. And this was after the fact that I was deemed not a suspect by the actual chief of police. They had no reason to try to go down that path. And the only reason why I agreed to it is if they would give me a platform to shine a light on who she actually was for her sake and her family's sake. They promised, but they broke that promise midway through the interview and took it down that path anyway, which is why I vowed to never speak again in the media because of who they actually were. And now that's why I'm here, because we actually have an opportunity to speak about it candidly, open, and honestly with our own platform. And we are the ones who are responsible for what's getting posted. There ain't
Yeah.
nobody there hitting switches or chopping clips up, erasing things that are positive about her and only posting anything negative. So that's the reason why I agreed to sit here and speak about it today.
Yeah, man. And yeah, she was a good person, man. Like from when I was around her and everything, she was good. She was laughing. She was a pretty girl, always dolled up and all those type of things. I
Very
would have never,
positive.
yeah. When they said it was that she done this, I would have never thought she would have been the last person on my mind that would do something like that. And it took me a long time to register it all myself because I didn't even speak to you because I think I tried to contact you and then I think you told me you were out or I couldn't. Something happened, but I just tried to give you a space um, when all of that stuff was going down
Yeah.
because I don't know how I could be if I was put into your shoes. That seemed like that would have been a tough situation to deal with, and you know that's pretty wild, man. But like now, okay, looking back on it looking like now looking back on it, 14 years have passed.
Yeah.
Like, what lessons did you learn from all of this? Like, how did it carry over into your who you are today? Like, how? Because that was a big traumatic event that happened.
Yeah.
How and stuff like that. People have, PTS, everything. I'm pretty sure you still carry some of that with you to this
Absolutely.
day.
Yeah.
How did it affect you on moving forward? Like all this time that has passed by.
Well, uh, it was hard at the time to really, you know, try to tell myself that there's something to be learned here. So it took years because there was so much, there was resentment towards myself and just life in general. I was so angry for so long at just life itself. Like how could things align to be so horrible for someone at that point? It's just so like insignificant to life. You know what I mean? Like it's just like it didn't make sense with me. No matter which way I thought about it, it didn't make sense. I couldn't fathom why in the world something like that could happen to a person like me or to, the people in her family or anybody close to her or, just I was just like, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. This is ridiculous. Like, but, you know, now that I'm, 14 years removed from that situation, I've already went through some more unfortunate, situations in my life. I went through a 10-year marriage that ultimately failed. Um, Came out as a father. I'm now a father of 3 children. Um, it's I look at that and it's like, okay, I can take those situations and I can bottle it all up and, I could unpack everything and look at it clearly now and say, all right, you know, moving forward with my life, not only my life, but also, especially my sons as they get older, they're going to come across those young relationships, with, young women that are going to possibly be like this or come across the whole jealousy game and stuff like that. And I will be able to be like, look, I know how you feel. I know what you want to do. I know how you want to play the game. I get it. But this is why that's not worth it. And even in my own marriage, when it failed, that marriage coming to an end, like I know that could have got bad. That could have got bad in a hurry. But the approach that I took, and I took that approach likely because of all the experience that I had from that situation back in '09, knowing how bad that can get and how ugly or volatile or dangerous it can actually become. So even during those moments where my ex-wife had her moments during that divorce, I didn't play. I did not play that game. I stuck to myself. I kept quiet because I know how bad it can get. And that's what I ended up taking away from that situation. And I won't credit, being able to go through that because it's still if I could give anything to take all that back, I absolutely would. Aside from my sons and my daughter, there's no way that I would, change anything about that. But you know, I wish there was some way, that I could just go back and do something personally and change something myself that could possibly just sway it in a different direction. And that doesn't mean me and Jenny be back together. I think so many times, because we broke up that first time and she went back to Florida. And I'm just like, man, I wish she had just stayed. You know what I mean? If she had never came
Yeah.
back up, she had just stayed down in Florida, she'd still be alive to this day. And we might not be together, that's fine, but she'd still be alive, and her family would still have her, and she'd still have her family.
Yeah.
But it just kills me to think she never had the opportunity to experience marriage. She never had the opportunity to experience having a child.
Yeah.
So many things, man. So, but that was my takeaway from it. I mean, I learned some things, and it actually, going through that actually helped me through some situations that I ended up going through later on in life. But talk about PTSD, bro. I still have it to this day, man. That that
Yeah.
situation, even when I think about it now, I'm just like, God, how?
And
How?
um, let's not. I know this is off track a little bit, but let's not forget. Um, Jenny. Jenny was a really mature 19, 20-year old. She was not a 19, 20-year old that's, out here like immature. She had a 30-year-old mindset. She was
Yeah,
very
that's
mature
because she was
at
she was forced to at a young age. I mean, it's like I said, she fled her country at a young age and was forced into to living much older than what she was because she had to for her own
yeah,
safety. And then to come to America when she finally got a chance to come to America, like she had that go getter mindset, like money, get a roof over my head, do what I got to do to make sure that myself and the people that I love are taken care of. And I mean, she was working at God. When I met her, she was working, bro. It like
yeah,
there was never a time where she did not work, and she refused to. There was so many times where I would tell her when we were together, "You ain't gotta work. We're fine.
yeah,
Stay home, chill out." And she did not do it. She did not like it. She wanted to always have her own money. She wanted me to have my own money, and we had our individual money, and our relationship flourished because of that.
yeah,
We were very good financially when we were together.
yeah. Well, as everyone knows, this is a mental health channel that we started uh, to just get on here and talk about real life experiences that we've
Mm-hmm.
gone through. And man, I appreciate you for opening up and talking about this all these years later. Like I never,
Yeah,
like I always ask you about it, but I like before this happened, I was like, "Are you sure you want to talk about it?" You like, "I'm sure." So,
yeah.
man, I
Well,
appreciate, huh?
it's like I said, like when you brought this up, because you brought up the podcast a few times, and I wasn't at the right spot because like I said, I was going through my things, you know, initially, but when you finally brought it up, and I was more, into the idea, I knew that this was going to be key, like because it's like in order for me to do a podcast discussing, men's mental health in general, overcoming, life's obstacles, depression, anxiety. This was the biggest situation in my life that I was clearly going to have to address regarding mental health, depression, suicide, suicidal thoughts. This was literally the worst point ever in my life. And the reason why I finally decided to speak about it was because, not because, I'm trying to speak about it regarding myself, but I feel like at this point, by me discussing this and by me and you coming on here on this podcast and discussing all the things that we went through and overcame, we can shed a light on these situations to other people possibly going through situations in their lives that feel impossible to make it through. I genuinely felt like this was it for me. I felt like I was probably going to die. I just didn't know when. I felt like I did not want to live anymore. I just had to figure out or muster up the courage to do it.
And bro, and that's what's crazy because that's why we named this channel Overcoming Tragedy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know how to get through it. And we
Right.
overcame it. You know what I mean?
So speaking
And it's
about this is
yeah.
exactly why, I want to share it. I want to share this specific story, as difficult as it is, because I want to show that I'm living proof that no matter how impossible, no matter how difficult, no matter how crazy the situation is, and no matter how bad you feel, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel, and there is always a reason to keep fighting and never give up. Because if I want, for one, my biggest success in my life are my children. If I had given up, my children wouldn't exist. I can't even fathom the idea of my children not existing, taking away their possibility at life because I gave up during a hardship in mine. It's not fair. And I'm so glad that I was strong enough to find the will to make it through that. Now, no matter how impossible that was, but shout out to, people like yourself and other close friends, through my life and going through that situation, as well as my family who has been there since day one. Like, I can't thank y'all enough, because if it wasn't for y'all and if I was on my own, I probably wouldn't be here to this day. But, especially my family talked me off that cliff multiple times. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad that they did. But man, I'm telling you right now, like, I am living proof. And if there is anything that you can take away from this message and me talking about this today, it is don't give up. Don't give up, because no matter how bad, no matter how hard, impossible, or difficult it may seem, it will get better. It got better for me, and I never thought that it ever would be. Never thought that my life would ever be normal again, but I am living proof. And if you have to refer to anything, I challenge you, look up on the internet how crazy and difficult my life got, and you'll see. I don't even have to talk about it. You can pull it up on Google. And as crazy as that might seem, and as nutty as that got, I made it through that. And I am here today. I got my own house. I just purchased my first house. I have 3 beautiful children, very good relationship with my sons. My daughter lives in Germany. I have a lot to be proud for and thankful of, you know, and I'm here to this day. And I'm so glad that I never gave up. But it's like I said, if there's anything that you can take away from this, take away that, because I mean, it's so worth it. It's so worth it to just get through it, get through it.
Man, right. And on that note, bro, dude, like I said, thank you again for jumping on here and telling your story and telling some of her story. And we will be coming back again. Sorry that it's been a little wait, but we will be back with another podcast. And we appreciate all of y'all for joining us again on this episode of Beyond the Shadows Overcoming Tragedy. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like, and share so we can continue to keep making content. We appreciate y'all. Peace.
Thank you guys. We'll see you in another one.